Name is Ernie Klapmeier. Why don't I say I've been doing historic interpretation since 1987. So literally, I have been in this uniform, if I took every day that I do these presentations, longer than guys who had actually served. Of course, if that was true, I'd also be retired by now in the military. My brothers who have been involved with airplanes all their life have been coming to Oshkosh, I think, from the second year. But I've always considered more the ground element. And we portrayed the RAF regiment. Their job at this particular point in the war for 2721 Squadron was pilot rescue. So someone gets shot down, if they are on our side of the line, they still need to get back to base. Everybody's busy, so it would be our job then to go out and get them. We'd also pick up prisoners of war. But after that, we were then assigned to Anzio, the bridgehead, because we were one of the first units into Rome when that was captured on June 3rd, 1944. And then it just goes on from there. So it's an interesting and not often recognized part of the British military system. Everybody thinks of RAF and they think of pilots, but who defends the airfield? That's the regiment. And the idea is that it's defense and force projection. The worst place to defend an airfield is at the perimeter. Because the easiest place to shoot down an airplane is when it's coming in or taking off. So they would move out 15, 20 miles, and then after that, they just kept going. So jobs that perhaps could be done by other units, they were busy. If nobody else is going to do it, have the regiment come in and do it. So they had a wide and diverse skill set in World War II because they were doing all the stuff that nobody else would do. And that's an interesting thing to portray, particularly here in the United States, because our history is very provincial. When people think about World War II, if they think about today World War II, they know Germany, they know Japan, they know the United States, but what about the Allies? And what were they doing? The United States is a huge country. England is a small country, but it had a worldwide impact on the war, and that's the part that we like to bring forward to remind people of what the Commonwealth and England was doing. And since this is Oshkosh, it might as well be RAF regiment so that we can show that connection to the homeland as well as connection to an obscure part. Specifically here, one of our jobs is security, just like they would have done. So we're help keep an eye on the tents so nothing wanders away, and keep people out of tents they shouldn't be in, and give them tents that they can look into. All of that kind of stuff is a practical thing to do. Well, this is called a dingo. It doesn't necessarily mean anything except that when they were looking for a contract, somebody to build an armored reconnaissance vehicle, every design was given a code name. Daimler, code name was the Dingo, and it stuck. Over 6,000 of them made. Every theater of operation had them. They were very popular because they could go 60 miles forward or reversed. So that it's saying you can get out of trouble as fast as you got into it. It's armored reconnaissance because it's meant to go and find the enemy, not necessarily fight them. But it became so popular, it can be found with a lot of officers using it. It's big enough that it could carry some of the extra radios that are needed in command and control. So if you're an officer running a battalion on the front lines, this is a nice way to get around because you have all that stuff right there. But it's only a two-person vehicle. So you hope the rest of the company's there with you. Another thing is very interesting from how technology develops. This has independent suspension system. Just think that in World War II, they had a modern suspension system. After World War II, they went right back to the old way of doing things, and it took us another 20 years to start seeing that come out in civilian stuff. But it's a very interesting piece of equipment. Well, what started when I was in high school in 1974, I heard about stuff like this, and I searched it out, and it just kind of got bigger than anybody ever thought it would. 1987 is when I started reenacting World War II. And in conjunction, after doing my own business for a number of years, I went to work at a museum, so 17 years I worked as an educator at museums. So the idea of giving that experience of history, I think, is important. When we look back into time, all of us can imagine what it was like, because our imagination is so strong that if you put yourself into that position, you can imagine, what did they do? What did they eat? What did they wear? And if you can do that, then you can start to appreciate what they felt, what they thought in these situations. And that's the important part. There's no glory in war, but there is glory in what people did to fight the war. And that's our job, is to remind people of the sacrifices that both civilians and soldiers did to make it possible for us to have this freedom. Because let's face it, this is a lot of fun because it's not real. You know, at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to go, and I don't have to worry about security. I don't have to worry about when I'm going to see my wife or children or grandchildren, all of those fears that a soldier is going to have at the front line. I don't have to worry about that, but I can imagine what it was like in those days 80 years ago. And that's what we want to bring to life. I mean, we're not the center. You know, how often have you looked up into the sky just today? You know, the airplanes, we sometimes joke, are great conversation stoppers. But there's a lot of interesting things on the air and on the ground. We're just a side point, because the history of aviation is a lot more than just the airplanes. It's about the people who made these advancements and made it possible to get human beings into the sky. And we're just reminding people of one small part of that. So that's why we're here. This is a family, of course. Yeah, some of the best times here is when the planes stop flying and all the public goes away. We're just sitting around. And the conversations can cover all sorts of things. But as reenactors, we know each other enough that we can be free to express ourselves, that if you did it anywhere else, you'd be in trouble. So that's fun. I mean, I got here on Saturday, and I'll be here until Sunday. So that's a long time to be on this ground, and all the little details, polishing the booth, polishing the brass, making sure that my grandson puts hospital corners on his cot. Well, nobody's going to look at this. It doesn't matter. That's what they did. That's what you do. Stop complaining. Just do it. Those kind of experience can translate into other parts of life too.